So what if everything you think you know about getting into heaven is just wrong? Today, we're diving into a philosophical text called The Way to Heaven. And let me tell you, its path to the afterlife is one of the most challenging and unconventional you'll probably ever come across. It is absolutely designed to turn all your assumptions upside down. So let's just get right into it.
This is a question people have been asking for, well, forever. We've got countless answers from religions and philosophies all over the world. But the source material we're digging into today has a really unique and kind of startlingly direct answer. And it starts by basically throwing almost every conventional idea right out the window.
So before this text even tells us what does get you in, it first wants to clear the slate. It just systematically dismantles all the things we think are important and shows us that, nope, they are completely irrelevant. This first part is all about unlearning what we assume is true.
All right, first up, let's talk about what our society values most, right? Status, power, fame, how much money you have in the bank. Surely being a big deal in this life gives you a bit of a leg up in the next one, doesn't it? Well, let's see.
And the answer from this text is a big, resounding no. Your bank account, your job title, your reputation. According to this source, all of it is completely and utterly beside the point. It has zero, and I mean zero, bearing on where you end up.
Okay, so material success is out, fine. But what about just being a genuinely good person? A life spent helping others, doing charity work, even saving lives. I mean, surely that's got to be the key, right?
And this is where the text gets really radical. It claims that even these good deeds, these things that we see as the pinnacle of virtue, they're not the deciding factor. It's a really challenging idea, and it cuts against what most of us have been taught to believe.
So this brings us to what many people would say is the most important thing of all: faith. The text specifically calls out things like building beautiful temples or churches, praying all the time, or being a devout follower of a particular god, a guru, or any spiritual leader.
And again, the source is just crystal clear. It says your religious affiliation, how pious you are, or even what you believe or don't believe is also irrelevant. The entire structure of organized religion is just dismissed as a requirement for entry.
So if none of that matters, not your wealth, not your good deeds, not even your faith, what on earth is left? I mean, really? Well, the text argues it all boils down to just one single solitary standard.
And this just nails the core concept, right? It's not about what you've done or what you believe, it's about what you are. It's a question of resonance, kind of like tuning a radio. Your fundamental nature has to be on the same frequency as the fundamental nature of heaven.
So, what does this quality of life, or Shengming Dapxinji, actually mean? Well, it's not our modern idea of being happy or successful or having a great career. The text defines it as something much, much deeper. It's a core characteristic of your very existence. It's your fundamental state of being. And here's the absolute heart of it all. The required quality, that state of being that matches heaven, is defined as Wu Si Wu Hua. And that translates to a pure, absolute selflessness, a state of being completely without ego, without an I or a me sitting at the very center of your universe.
So the goal is to achieve a state of no self. Wow, that sounds incredibly difficult, maybe even impossible. So how does a person actually walk this path? Well, the text does give us a kind of roadmap.
So the text lays out three pretty huge conditions. First, you have to repay all debts, and that's both literal and metaphorical. So yeah, pay off your credit cards, but also resolve your karmic or emotional debts. Second, you have to settle all your worldly affairs and just release your attachments to people, to stuff, even to your own identity. And finally, and this one is the most mysterious, you have to perfect what the text calls the anti-material structure of your life, which means creating an inner state that is completely untied from the physical world.
Now, get ready because this is where the logic gets really counterintuitive. The source warns against even the thought of being a savior. The very idea, I am going to save people, is an act of the ego, of the self. Any real progress, it argues, is an internal act of saving your own being from the grip of that self.
And this idea just keeps going. The moment you frame an action as me helping you, you've reinforced the ego. The text claims all genuine spiritual work is about refining your own state of being. By helping yourself achieve this selflessness, you are in turn affecting everything.
So what are the stakes in all of this? The text presents a very clear fork in the road. Based on whether you achieve this selfless state or not, one of two very different fates is waiting for you after you die.
And this slide really lays out the two paths so clearly.
If you achieve that pure selflessness, you follow the arrow up. You transcend the whole cycle and enter heaven because your nature now matches its nature. But if you remain attached to the self, you stay on the wheel of reincarnation, endlessly cycling through life as a person, an animal, and back again, experiencing all the joys and sorrows without ever remembering why.
And this brings us to our final thought. We live in a culture that is completely obsessed with self-help, self-care, and building a better self. But this text offers a really radical alternative. What if the entire project of the self is the very thing we need to get over? It leaves us with a pretty challenging question. Is the real goal to improve the self, or is it to transcend it entirely?